this. All right. Well, so we made it through the semester for the most part. Here we are. So the point of the study session is to go over, just to, to review the requirements for the exam and talk about what my expectations are for the exam. They're really similar to the expectations for the midterm exam. Okay. But we'll just go over those. And then you should have, if the questions became available last night at midnight. So I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at those or not, but we'll go over the questions. I'll give you some hints on, what to consider as you are filling out and answering the questions, and then we will go from there. All right, so let me share my screen. Okay. All right. And so the first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at the Canvas site and just kind of review the requirements for the test. Okay. So you have several days to work on it. The exam is due no later than Monday, December 19th at midnight. Okay. So you have, all weekend and tomorrow to work on it, and including all day Monday too. So you have some good time to work on it. If you get it done earlier, feel free to submit it earlier. Okay. But obviously you can take all that time through Monday, the 19th. One of the differences between the final and the midterm exam is I'll only make comments on the exam if you ask me to. Okay. I'll sometimes make brief comments and to explain like why I'm taking off points. But in my years of experience, a lot of times students don't look at the comments that I make on the final exam. And so but I'm more than happy to make comments if you want comments. But once you submit your exam, if you do want comments, just leave a message for me in the Canvas box, saying the message box saying, please leave comments. I'd be happy to do that. And another difference between this exam and the midterm exam is that there are 5 questions on the exam and you have to answer 4. Okay. So in a way, the stakes are a little bit higher. This exam is worth more. It's worth 21% of your overall grade. And so there's a little less wiggle room in terms of the essay questions that you're answering. You still have to do 4, but there are only 5 on the exam to choose from. But I don't think that will be too difficult. I mean, a lot of this is stuff that we've covered in class, and so you should be well prepared to do it. The length is the same. Again, I'm not like a crazy stickler for the length. I think that the best length is about 2 double-spaced pages for each answer. If you go a little bit over, that's fine. A little bit under, you might want to ask yourself, are you fully answering the question? But if at the end of the day, your exam is 4 pages or like 15 pages, if it's 4, you'll want to go in and just make sure you're answering all the props, using all the course materials to answer the question, because I'm really looking for your ability to demonstrate that you understand this material. And if you're over, just ask yourself, hey, are you including stuff that isn't necessary for answering the question? So keep some of those things in mind. All right. So the tips I always give are make sure that you answer every prompt in the question. Okay. I have a rubric in my head that I use when I'm grading the exam. And so just make sure that you are answering all of the prompts. You're also going to want to use all the course material in the course of answering the questions. Okay. And so what that means is that, when you look at the exam as a whole, I'll be expecting you to pull upon, the textbook, any course commentary, the lectures, and the articles for this. Now, this exam is, it's called a final exam, but it's really for the second half of the semester. So it's from topic 8 through 12. But that being said, you can pull on any material throughout the course of the exam, throughout the course of the semester to help you answer the exam. Okay. So, in the midterm, it was just really sort of the first half of the material. For the final, these questions are designed to demonstrate your competency of topics 8 through 12. But if you want to bring in stuff from earlier in the semester to help you answer the questions, totally cool. Do not use external resources though. I have that right there. And so, this exam is designed to, for you to demonstrate your mastery of the course resources. So it's not good to use external resources. Now, that being said, if you want to add one little additional thing or support for the point that you're making, and you get that from external resources, that's fine. But I would like you to sort of like reach out to me and say, hey, I was going to use this to sort of make this point. Is that cool from an external resource? And I'll be like, yes or no. Okay. So please ask for approval. Make sure you proofread. It should be easy to read. And that I give you instructions there for how to cite. Okay. Make sure if you're using direct quotes, you really need to put those in quotation marks. Okay. Otherwise it's plagiarism. If you're not using direct quotes, but you're summarizing ideas, then just, put the parentheses, say, women's rights in the United States, and give the page number, or if it's a reference to the lecture. Okay. Use the parentheses if you're using direct quotes, but if you are taking something directly from the textbook or articles, or even from the lecture, make sure you put those in quotation marks. Okay. And I know it's an online class, so you're probably not going to be collaborating, but it could be that these your fellow classmates from other classes that you're in with them in the real world, in the live world. And so it's okay to like study together, but all of your work needs to be independent. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's see, stop the share. And see if I can. There you go. All right, so I'm just going to, as I usually do, I go around just ask people if they have questions about the expectations for the exam. Sienna, we'll start with you. This is probably not new to you. I've had you for several classes. So, but do you have any questions about the expectations?
No, they're pretty similar to your other ones. So, yeah.
Definitely. Haley, do you have any questions?
No, it all seems pretty clear to me.
Excellent. And how about Kayla? Kayla, do you have any questions?
Same with me. It all seems pretty clear.
All right, excellent. All right, now let's take a look at the questions. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to share the screen again. And let me get out of, there we go. All right, so there they are. The final exams, as I said, worth 210 points. Each answer is worth 52.5 points. So just to divide it up, each question is worth the same amount. Even though I tell students all this time, students still like sometimes submit answers, the exam, but there aren't any answers on it. So really make sure that before you start working on the exam, save the document, like with a unique name, like your last name, and then like 231 fall 22 or something like that. Save it to your desktop, save it to a zip drive or to your hard drive. Okay. And then, if you don't have autosave, just make sure you're saving throughout the course of working on it. That way you'll make sure that you won't lose any of your answers, and that you'll make sure that you save it right before you upload it, so that any work that's on there is saved. And so it appears for me to grade. Okay. I just had a student this semester who didn't submit the exam. It was only the questions, and then they couldn't find their work afterwards. And so they basically had to redo it. So I don't want that to happen to you. All right, so you've got 5 questions. Again, if you want comments, make sure you leave a message for me so I can make comments. The first question has to do with pornography. And so it says that liberal and radical feminists have very different perspectives on pornography. First, I want you to define pornography. And what's the difference between pornography and obscenity? Those are different things. Is pornography considered an expression that is protected by the First Amendment? Explain. Next, explain the liberal and radical feminist perspectives regarding pornography, including the reasons underpinning those perspectives and the policy responses that reflect these viewpoints. So that's descriptive. It's you getting to demonstrate that you know the difference, that you know what pornography is, and that you know the difference between liberal and feminist perspectives, as it relates not just to their major differences, but as it relates to pornography. And then finally, the critical thinking question here, and I'll highlight that because I always tell students, hey, don't make sure you answer that. Just don't be like, oh, of the two perspectives, I think the radical feminist has the better perspective, right? Explain to me why. So of these two, which perspectives are you most in agreement with? Why? And explain your answer. There's never a right answer to that critical thinking prompt. It's really just how you support your reasoning with the critical thinking prompt. There are right answers for what's the difference between pornography and obscenity, etc. Okay, but the critical thinking prompt, I think both liberal and radical feminists have, really compelling perspectives. And so you just make a case for which one you support. Okay, so I will go around. Sienna, do you have any questions about the first question?
I just, question 1 is basically more like topic 8, lecture 1 and 2, chapter 9.
Yep,
Is that about right? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Right.
Yep.
Good. Because I think the one lecture is sort of like the bumper stickers lecture, where it's sort of like,
Oh, yep.
yeah, and then the other one is sort of like going in more deeply on pornography. So good. Kayla, do you have a question about the first question?
I'm good.
And how about you, Haley?
No, I'm all right.
All right, cool. All right, the second question is about sexual assault. And so I want you to describe the common law era, pre-1960s, the common law definition of sexual assault. What does the common law understanding of sexual assault tell us about the assumptions regarding sex and gender roles at the time period? And so define what sexual assault is under common law, and then how sexual assault is defined. What does that tell us about gender roles, gender expectations, and really just sort of like the whole gendered concept and notion of the common law understanding of sexual assault, okay? Then I want you to say, starting in the 1960s and 70s, feminists worked with policymakers to reform rape and sexual assault law in the United States. Describe these reforms, and then of these reforms, which do you think has been most important or successful in addressing sexual assault? Explain. And when it comes to sexual assault law policy, what are some suggestions you might have for improvement? Explain, okay? So it's a pretty broad question, but so make sure you're sort of judicious in the way you're answering the question, right? You don't need to tell me everything you know about all the reforms that were in place, in the 1970s, right? Just describe some of the reforms, right? Get a broad sense of what the goals of the reforms were, right? The goals of the reform were really to make it so it's easier to prosecute sexual assault, right? By giving, different grades of offenses, right? If it's just, if there's only one degree of sexual assault and it's really severe, prosecutors aren't going to pursue those because it's difficult to, get a conviction. And so, there's a lot of material to cover. Just make sure that you're sort of edit down and just make sure that you're like, demonstrating to me that you understand this without having to tell me everything about the reforms. And then this one, both these, the critical prompts here, other forms, which one do you think has been most successful and where do we need improvement? Again, there's no right or wrong answer to that, I guess. I guess if you said that there is no need for improvement to improve our sexual assault laws, I'd have to disagree with that. But what you choose that to select it just is based on how you best support it. Okay, so that's question 2. Sienna, do you have any questions about question 2?
Just like before, I just want to make sure that was like chapter 10 in our book, like topic 9.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Right. And that chapter, right. So that's what the material you should be looking at. And I don't think there's any additional articles or anything that you could pull upon.
Okay.
And Haley or Kayla, any questions on that?
No.
Pretty straightforward.
I think I feel okay. Yeah. If I have any questions, it's nice that it's not till Monday so that you have some time still to ask you.
Excellent. And that's a good point. So that, I can't give you the answers, obviously, and I know that's not what you're saying, but as you start working on this and you get into it more deeply, don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, I'm a little bit confused about the wording here, or what do you mean by this? And I can definitely help clarify. All right. Question 3 is about Title IX and the impact it's had on gender and education in the United States. So describe Title IX. You don't have to tell me everything about Title IX, but just the main goals. What were the goals of the law? When the law was implemented, what were some of the major controversies concerning the law? Making sure to address the debates regarding gender equity in sports. Okay. There are other controversies, right? About textbooks and, about, the types of courses that should be taught in classes. So there are other controversies besides sports, but since we did watch Keepers of the Game and you watched the video about Title IX and sports, I really hope you bring that into this. And then has Title IX achieved its goals, and why or why not? And here, don't just say has it achieved its goals as it relates to sports. Has it achieved its broad goals? That the broad goals of gender equity in education. Okay. All right. Any questions on that?
Oh, hi, it's me. I just wanted to make sure, with this Title IX, is that including that video with the transgender athletes? That there was that male who turned into a female that was running. Is it go that
yeah.
far or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
definitely. You could definitely pull upon that because, there are different controversies as it relates to Title IX and equity in sports. One controversy is the equity of sports between women and men's sports, right? It's sort of like women's sports getting enough funding, like football still gets tons of scholarships. And so it's like other like smaller male sports are being cut out because they're like, oh, we don't want to give up on our football program. But yeah, now when we talk about the issue of transgender and Title IX, it would really be sort of, make sure you're like not talking about the runner who, transitioned, like the article and the video from the New York Times, because that person was just not in school, right? But you talk about Leah Thomas, and then also like like you can bring in what we talked about in the debate, about, I think in our debate, people were like, up and through high school, right? That it's probably, particularly early in high school or through middle school, you're not going to have big differences because kids haven't gone through puberty yet. But then once they go through puberty, and definitely once they're in college, right, then you're going to see maybe some differences. So I used too many words. The long and the short of it is, yes, you can bring in the transgendered athlete piece, but make sure it's specific to higher ed, okay, or just education in general. Great question.
I was gonna say, I think there was an article about a swimmer that was in high school, correct? Yeah.
No, the Leah Thompson, that was in college.
Oh, okay. So that doesn't count, or it does
Oh,
count?
no. Title IX applies to college.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, high school or college. It's just not somebody like that professional, like the long distance runner who's like in there.
Yeah, I got what you meant with that. Okay. And then I was going to ask you, I know in the readings and stuff, like you were just mentioning that football is always a big issue, for men because of the I don't know, a lot of money is put towards it. And that is basketball as much or not necessarily?
I think football is the only one that's exempted from the scholarships because so much money is into football. But so they kind of allow a carve out, as I understand it, for football scholarships. They don't necessarily, like with Title IX, you have to make sure that there's enough scholarship money for men and women that it's equitable, but there's a carve out for football. I don't think there's a carve out for basketball because with basketball, you have women's basketball teams in NCAA and you have men's basketball team. As I went to Purdue, we had our women's basketball team in Purdue was like awesome, So there you're going to have like sort of like a balancing of scholarships that go to the women players and scholarships that go to the men's basketball players. football's unique though, because, you know, colleges and even high schools generally don't have like all women football teams, right? And so
Yeah.
that's why football kind of creates this unique um calculus when it comes to scholarships. And that's why it was one of the compromises to exempt out football. Because because so much money is wrapped up in football, it would, like, a lot of other men's programs would have to be cut in order to find that equity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, rely on that video too. That person's like an expert in Title IX law and history. So you can reference that as well. All right,
Okay,
cool.
great.
Other questions on the Title IX question? All right, on to protective labor law. So from your reading, you know that there's like two major eras of labor law. One prior to the 1960s, so everything happened in the 1960s, where women are seen as like a protected class in need of special care and protection in labor. And I don't mean like having a baby, I mean like working. Not that like having a baby is not work, but and then after that, there's the equity. You know, it's sort of like after the 1960s, it's like equal opportunity, equal pay. But this question is asking you to talk about the pre-1960s protective labor laws that were tailored to protect women in the work environment. So the lecture talks about the main categories of protective labor law. And so describe those main categories, explain the reasons behind their enactment, as well as reasons for the shift away from these laws towards laws focused on workplace gender equity. Did feminists approve of the shift away from the protective labor laws towards the workplace gender equity laws? Why or why not? Okay. And so pretty straightforward, mostly a focus on the protective labor law time period. It also allows you to look at the controversies within feminism, because throughout the early parts of the 20th century, you know, social feminists and equity feminists had really different approaches to the sorts of protections that women should get in the workplace. And taking those protections away was a controversy. So this gives you an opportunity to talk about that. And that is what, topic 11, I think. Yeah. And then the corresponding a chapter with that.
You cut out
Jess-
when you said
yes.
which topic again? I'm sorry.
That's topic 11.
Okay, sorry, you like cut out right when you said it, so I was like, but
Oh,
I'm just things
yeah.
down, kind of talking about it.
Yeah.
What chapter is it in the book? Or is it?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, whatever, if you look at the chapter associated with topic 11, that's what it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Because I think the chapters, I sometimes go out of order. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. I this was the one question I couldn't find my information on for some reason.
Oh, well, hey, let's
Oh,
look
7?
at it. Let's look at the Canvas site, see what it says.
I mean, I remember you talking about it and stuff. It's not like I wasn't around, but
No.
I kind of go through to make sure I understand what, the things were related to, but this was the one I just couldn't find. Maybe I ran out of time too, but chapter 7 maybe in the book.
Well, don't I usually put the readings there? Maybe it's in, I think it's in the reading quiz portion. Readings and reading quiz, there it is. Okay, so it's chapter 7.
Okay, in the book. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Right.
then, there were readings about other things having to do with work beyond the protective labor laws. So these, those articles are probably not relevant for the exam. It would really be the material
okay.
lectures, and then in chapter 7 of the textbook.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. All right, and the last one is the last topic, topic 12. And so actually we can just take a look at, and there are several resources that you can pull upon for this. So for topic 12, that's the feminization of poverty. And then there is chapter 11 that you can pull upon for that. But there were also those videos for chapter 12 that went with the lecture. And so you can pull upon these too. And so there was the lecture on the feminization of poverty. So obviously you'll pull on that. But then there was, about welfare and the politics of poverty. And then there was that universal basic income and the challenges of the role that UBI, universal basic income, could play in alleviating poverty for women. You don't have to bring all that in, but those resources are there for you to pull upon. And so it says, in describing the concept of the feminization of poverty, the textbook states that poverty is a different condition for women than for men, and that policymakers should take these differences into account. Explain what this statement means using examples from course materials, lecture, textbook, any of those videos to help clarify your explanation. And then thinking of the policies in the United States that are designed to address poverty and economic well-being, assess to what degree, if at all, these policies recognize that poverty and economic insecurity impacts men and women differently. If you find these policies fail to properly address the feminization of poverty, how might these policies be improved? Explain your answer. And if you find that these policies effectively address the feminization of poverty, explain why. And so for this answer, you can really pull upon a lot of, we just got done with the debate about the gap in pay. The pay gap is a feminization of poverty issue, right? We know that the gap in pay is related to not having paid leave, right? And so there are policies they talk about in the textbook that alleviate the feminization or reduce the gap to make it so that women aren't more likely to be in poverty than men. But you can pull upon UBI, the universal basic income. You can pull upon what you learned from the gender gap discussion. And honestly, you could, any of the policy papers, if your policy paper related to the feminization of poverty, I know some people are doing, papers on like maternal health outcomes and the difference between Black and white women, right? You can pull in what you've learned from that. So this is really kind of use what you want to use. Use the chapter and the lecture and stuff, but bring in what you need to bring in to, to help you answer that question. It says there, you don't need to address all the economic policies discussed in the textbook. Select one or two that best help you to answer this question. Okay. All right. Any questions on that question? Sienna, you got a question?
Nope, I'm actually good on that. We did this in the last one we just did, yeah.
It is. It's one of my favorite topics too,
Yeah.
just because I think it is, well, anyways, I won't go on. Haley, do you have a question about that one?
No, I don't.
All right, cool. And Kayla?
I'm all good.
Excellent. All right, I am going to stop the share. All right, well, that's it for the exam review session. Any questions about anything? Or, it sounds like you guys are pretty well covered. Like I said, if you have questions as you're working on it, I'll be around grading and trying to decorate my Christmas tree, which is going to take forever. So I'll be around, obviously through Monday. So I'm here to help you. Don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. And so unless there are any other questions, and you guys good?
I just had a question about.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry, Sienna, you can go. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask if there's any late term work that can still be turned in. Would that be the deadline?
Yeah. If you have late work, reach out to me and we'll come up with some plan. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my general policy, it's not in my written policies, but my general policy is that I accept late work, even if it's really late, as long as you won't get full credit for it, but it's better than a zero. I sort of let students reach out to me, like, and so definitely reach out to me if you have late work, and we'll come up with some plan to help you get some credit for that. Okay,
Okay, all right, thanks.
cool. And
So two
yeah.
questions for me. So I guess just thinking of what Sienna had said, first question would be, so my first like policy paper assignment, I got a 0 because I did it wrong. And I redid it, but I guess I never resubmitted it. So would I be able to like send it to you and then you look at that over and maybe regrade it, or is that not possible?
Definitely, right. You can resubmit it. I mean, I'll probably take points off because it's been so late, but it's better than a 0. And
Right.
also, and Sienna, you do this too, if you're submitting late work after you email me or whatever, just send it to me via email, because sometimes when stuff gets resubmitted to Canvas, I don't get alerted, and I can't, it's like the old thing is still there and I can't find the new thing. So yeah,
feel like-
send it to me as an attachment via Canvas or just via regular email. That'll work.
And then tomorrow I'm gonna try to I'm about like halfway through, I'd say, my paper 3/4, but I was gonna send it to you tomorrow just to see if you could quick like look it over and then make sure, because I know the last one I did okay, but you said there were some things that I needed to work on, so I want to make sure that I get those correct this time.
Yeah, definitely. Send it to me earlier in the day is better, because there's a campus holiday party that's at 4. So earlier in the day, like if you can get it to me like before 11 a.m., I can take a look at it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. And good luck on your exam. And like I said, if you need help, just reach out. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Bye,
day.
thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.